Well, I hope you took a break as I told you to, and maybe took a wander around, got some coffee, stretched, whatever. Because now we need to continue with the MLA style. Okay. So previously we talked about in-text citation. Now we need to talk about your works cited. The works cited, you will remember, comes at the end of the paper. It's after you've typed everything out. It's the bibliographic information, and it is titled Works Cited, always. Now, in this go the names of the authors. And so let's look at how we do all this. If it's a single author, we would write last name first, then a comma, then the middle name, names, or middle name and initial, first name and, wow. Okay, if it's a first author, if there's only one. See, this happens. If this was a live class, I'd just look at you, sigh, tell you my brain was broken, and move on with life. So, I can't look at you, but I'll tell you I screwed that up, and now we'll move on with life. So, if there's only one author, you cite their last name first, then a comma, then their first name, and either their middle name or middle initial, depending on what was written on the book in the information section, which would be either the front leaf or the copyright page. So in the case of like Edgar Allan Poe, he would be listed as Poe, Edgar Allan. If your author is someone like J.K. Rowling, then it would be Rowling, J.K. Okay. If you have two authors, they are first author, then second author. Now you don't alphabetize the order of the authors, because if you look, Shirley Jackson should come before Edgar Allan Poe if we were doing this alphabetically, because J comes before P. At least it did when I got up this morning. But the order of the authors is not chosen by you. It's chosen by the authors, or it's chosen by the publisher. It's chosen by someone else, and it's chosen for a reason. So you don't get to fix that. You don't get to decide, it looks messy not being in alphabetical order, so I'm going to put it in alphabetical order. You also don't get to decide, well, it would be polite to let the ladies go first, so Shirley comes before Edgar. You're stuck with the fact that it's Edgar Allan Poe and Shirley Jackson. So the way we list that in the works cited is Poe, Edgar Allan, and Shirley Jackson. If you have three or more authors, they are listed as Poe, Edgar Allan, because he was the first one, et al., period. Now again, et al. Is short for et ali, which means and others. It's Latin. Get used to Latin abbreviations being throughout the English language. If it is an editor or a translator or any other non-author, it's very similar, but you have to add their title. So it's last name first, first name, and then their title. So I've given you the example of Statham, Richard, editor. Okay. Now, if Richard Statham had been the translator, it would be Statham, Richard, translator. But he wasn't. He was the editor. Titles. You have to include the subtitle. Okay. Now, the subtitle may not always be perfectly apparent, but it's all the other words in a title. Okay. So, often the title appears in big capital letters and the subtitle in smaller caps, or you might see a full colon in the title. Well, that thing that appears after the full colon is the subtitle. Let's see. Our books do not exactly have subtitles. But trying to remember one that does. Anyway, subtitles exist. You have to use the whole thing. Okay. I'll try to find an example of a subtitle to show you. And you capitalize when you're, this is again in the Works Cited. You must capitalize every word in the title except for articles, prepositions, coordinating conjunctions. Now the exception to that rule is if those prepositions, articles, or coordinating conjunctions are the first or last word in either the title or the subtitle. You italicize the titles of books, periodicals, and other long works. Okay. And you enclose in quotation marks the titles of short works and sources which are part of longer works. Okay, so for instance, we have an article, th/ex, agreement, and the case in expletive sentences. Okay. And you see here, THEX has to be capitalized because those are specific cases which would be capitalized. Agreement is capitalized, but the word and the word in are not. Well, and is one of those articles, one of those prepositions. And is a coordinating conjunction. That's what it is. And in is a preposition. Much like you, when I get going too fast, I don't always listen to myself before I speak, so I should slow down. Okay, so and being a conjunction, you don't capitalize it. And in being a preposition, you don't capitalize. But the whole thing is put inside quotation marks, and that's because that's an article from a journal, so it's considered a short work. Even an article that is, say, 20, 30 pages is considered a short work. Now you compare that to a general's life, an autobiography by General of the Army Omar N. Bradley. Now that's the whole title. Okay, that's not the title and the author. You notice that in the first example, I did not give you the author. That's because that was just the title. And this is the title of that book. So that's its full subtitle. The book is commonly known as A General's Life. It's also commonly known as the autobiography of Bradley, or Omar Bradley's autobiography. But the full title is A General's Life, an autobiography by General of the Army Omar N. Bradley. It may seem like it's not part of the title, but it is. Okay, so you also have to have the publisher's information. Now, you write the publisher's names in full, but you omit things like company or incorporated. So Wiley & Sons Company becomes just Wiley & Sons. For any university press, UP is how it's normally written. So you have the Cambridge UP, the Harvard UP, the U of Texas P, that's the University of Texas Press. The university press that's at UTEP is known as Texas Western UP. Okay, so that's Texas Western University Press. That's because the press is older than the name UTEP. Dates. You use the most recent date of the publication. It's because sometimes things get new editions, re-edited, re-put together, new copyright dates. You use the newest date. And for periodicals, you use the month or quarter. And just use the standard 3-letter abbreviations for months. You know, JAN for January, FEB for February, and so on and so forth. Page numbers. The beginning page through the ending page in parenthesis. Okay, in other words, 415 to 489. Just like it is on your syllabus. Now, if you're using online database access, you have to talk about the fact that things on the internet change, sometimes overnight. So you have to include when you accessed that data. Okay, and it just looks like this. Accessed 15 January 2009. That's all. So here are those two examples. All right. So from a journal, Sobin, Nicholas, that's our author. TH/EX agreement and case in expletive sentences, all of which is in quotation marks. And you notice that there's a period after Sobin Nicholas and a period at the end of the name of the title. Those demark where you make the change from author to title and then from title to journal. Okay, so our journal here is Syntax 17.4, 2014, colon, that's where we talk about page numbers, 385 to 416, period. Academic search complete. That's how we found it. Web, and then the access date, 26 October 2016. Okay. So what this tells us is that somebody called Nicholas Sobin wrote an article called THEX Agreement and Case in Expletive Sentences. It appeared in a journal called Syntax, issue number 17.4 in 2014. And the page numbers are 385 to 416. And the version we're quoting is as it was seen through Academic Search Complete on the 26th of October, 2016. That's what all that means. And anybody reading a Works Cited knows that that's what all that means, and that's all got to be there. Now, a book. So we start again with the last name of the first author. Bradley, Omar N. and Clay Blair. Now remember, because it's two authors, we don't get to put Blair before Bradley. And the second author appears first name first and last name last, whereas the first author appears last name first, first name last. So we have Bradley, Omar N. and Clay Blair, period. That's the end of the authors. Now we have the title. A General's Life, colon, an autobiography by General of the Army Omar N. Bradley, period. That's the end of the title. Simon & Schuster, that's the publishing company, 1983, period. Now we don't have to include page numbers here because this is the Works Cited. The whole book is where you find the whole book. In the example of the journal, we have to include page numbers because the article is not the whole journal. Okay? That's how this should appear. As you read through the Norton and Writer's Ref sections on MLA, you'll get more ideas. If you have questions, please ask them. There will be one more video in which I show you how to set everything up using Microsoft Word and Zotero. Before you watch that, take yet another break, maybe have some coffee, maybe come back tomorrow. Nothing says you have to watch all these videos right in a row. If you have any questions, get a hold of me. Remember to use email, anelso17@epcc.edu. It's far more dependable than using Blackboard Messenger.